Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and I'm here now to talk about Venus entering Leo. She did so on the 5th of June, and she'll continue to move through Leo until the 8th of October. I'm always using, with reference, the Greenwich Mean Time or the Universal Time. So when you might see different dates coming up from different people who are talking about that, that's because they're referring to their time zone, or at the very least, not the universal time zone. So in terms of the universal dates, she is within Leo from the afternoon of the 5th of June until the afternoon of the 8th of October. And so here I'd like to speak more about Venus in this direct motion through the initial month, let's say 5 weeks-ish of her passage through Leo. Or maybe more like 2 months, until she gets to the retrograde phase, which is actually on the 23rd of July. So, and that again is universal time, so we might see different dates coming up. She will be retrograde from the 23rd of July until the 4th of September. But I'm going to cover that in a separate video. So closer to the beginning of July, I'm going to come back and we'll really look deeply at what Venus retrograde is going to represent sign by sign. Because there's already a lot to cover. And I think the Venus retrograde carries a beautiful energy of a kind of a restart or re-examination around those different areas of relationship and money in our lives. And I'd like to also introduce you in that video to a practice called Beginning Anew, which is the practice of my teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, and that's something that is very helpful within relationships. So let's leave that aside for now. I'm going to focus on this Venus moving direct through Leo. And let's go bit by bit through what all of these things mean, and then we'll move to the sign-by-sign forecast. So, of course, it does matter what the quality of your own Venus is in your chart. So it's not just because Venus rocks up in Leo that all of a sudden you become this incredibly outgoing and extremely flamboyant person, whether it be with regards to how you spend money or in your relationships or in your values, for example. It does matter what your natal imprint is, and this will only give a temporary flavor to your chart, unless, of course, you have Venus in Leo, in which case, listen with both ears wide open. But do bear that in mind. There is no one-size-fits-all anything, basically, and certainly not in astrology. It is something that always requires the nuance of understanding the natal chart, and the transits are always to be applied on the foundation of the natal chart. So that is going to be always taking precedence. So take what I say here as a kind of a guideline. It's not going to be something that will affect some of you in any particularly strong way, unless you already have a very strong resonance with either some of the houses or the energy of the fire signs, for example. Venus is co-present with Mars in Leo up until the 10th of July. And that means that they're going to be kind of dancing together here in Leo. Mars in Leo is quite outward going, really driven by personal desire, personal ego, personal aims and desires, what the heart desires, let's say, because of course Leo always represents the heart. It represents our heart connection, but also the motivations of the heart. And then, of course, Venus in many ways also represents that. So Venus in Leo adds to that quality of being driven or being attracted to or having desires based on what we personally want. Because, of course, Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is our solar consciousness. It's our sense of self or sense of purpose in life, if you like. And so that quality of Venus in Leo on some levels really meshes, where this desire nature can be very, very strong. That can also be a little too strong, because ultimately Venus is about compromise and harmony and balance. And when that comes into the realm of the sun is naturally self-oriented. It's naturally more self-sufficient, maybe confident, and has a quality of potentially even selfishness, and that is not always a bad thing, depending on the context. And also Leo, being a masculine sign, carries a different energy than Venus, which of course is the symbol or the karaka for the feminine energy. beauty and harmony and diplomacy and so on. So there are some clashes in this regard, but there are also some overlaps. And that again is going to be either turned up or turned down according to your own chart and your own natural tendencies. So again, it's not like you're going to go like off the charts all of a sudden, become this incredible sort of Venusian lion. If, for example, you naturally have natally have Venus in Capricorn or Virgo, where your Venus is much more quiet and retiring and shy, or Aquarius for that matter. So with Venus, we're looking at relationship issues in these 4 months, things that we might need or want to express within relationships, things that we might need to harmonize within relationships as well. So this is something that is going to be in the retrograde phase, probably coming up much more strongly than in the direct phase, where the retrograde phase tends to be where we start to reflect on what is actually going on, where the direct phase, things tend to just kind of move along. So I'm not sure that this is necessarily a 4-month story, but you might notice that different things get called into question within those 4 months in terms of what it is that you want in relationship. And that also includes your sense of what you want around money and how you express yourself in terms of your own personal value as well. Venus always represents values in general. And that's going to be much more personal to you, your own heart's desire in all of those different ways. So this is something that is going to be requiring a little bit of potential compromise at times, or again, depending on your initial nature, might require you to turn up the volume a little bit to actually step forward and ask for what you want. We want to examine our desires in general when Venus is in Leo. What is the nature of our desire? That is something to reflect on overall in terms of where we might need to recognize that pride, which is a Leo quality, or even selfishness or a need for attention, can actually be blocking the recognition and the love that we're seeking in relationship. If you see yourself as the center of the relationship, it's very difficult to actually find the balance, because then you're almost blocking the other person from having the experience of balance and harmony in relationships. So this is where Venus in Leo can be a bit problematic, because there can be a tendency to be more self-centered and less concerned with what's good overall for the balance of harmony in the relationship. So this is, again, perhaps more of a question for the retrograde phase, but definitely already a question for Venus in Leo in general. It's certainly about where we express ourselves, and that can also include how we spend money. So, of course, the choices of what we spend money on are a direct reflection of what we value, what we think is important. And that also could extend to, say, the way that we dress, the way that we choose to look. And that will, of course, create a self-expression in terms of our beauty, in terms of the way that we conceive of our own appearance and beauty. And that's a way of expressing yourself creatively, right? Or expressing love as well. How do you manifest love? How do you express that love? And again, in the highest qualities of Leo, it's really this heart-centered, joyful expression of our desires and our love. And so that can be quite radiant, can be quite a beautiful energy, but it's not always the go-to with Venus in Leo. So just maybe some things to think about there. Definitely reflect on yourself as a source of value and beauty. So just you as that sort of radiance, that heart-centered radiance. In what ways can you add harmony and beauty and value to your own life? Independently of a partner or of any other way of expressing yourself, just how can you do that for you already? And that's, I think, a really good place to start. Now, when Venus jumps into the sign of Leo, she's actually in direct opposition to Pluto. So this is a really intense combination. And very quickly afterwards also jumps into the orb of the square with the nodes. And so she's at the what are called the bendings of the nodes, and so is Pluto. And so this creates a whole new kind of need for us to examine our issues around self-worth, around our self-expression, around our values, potentially around feminine nature, in the energy of the masculine, because of course, remember, Leo is the masculine energy of the sun, and Venus is that archetypal feminine energy, which all people have in one or another degree. And this is something we can all examine. How does that role manifest itself in my life? And then in opposition to Pluto, maybe I'm entering into struggles of, power plays or manipulation and games in relationships, or in terms of my own capacity to express myself. Maybe I'm feeling like I can't express myself because there's a sense that there's some kind of outer obstacle, outer force that blocks that self-expression. So all of these things are worth checking in this early stage of Venus moving into Leo. As Venus is in square to the nodes, this is something to do with what is the old version, let's say, the old way, and what is the new way? Where are we moving towards? And of course, Venus is ruling that north node, which is currently in Taurus. And as Venus rules the north node, she adds to this energy of, the power of what is my value? What do I value? And again, perhaps the question of what do I spend my money on? And then she's moving away from that south node, this understanding perhaps from a deeper place, a deeper unconscious motivation, fears, of course, that Scorpio as well. What are we afraid of? Or what are we perhaps not looking at that requires some examination? These questions are going to depend on your natal chart, and that, of course, is going to be different for every person, and especially, of course, at the different stages of life that you find yourself. But nonetheless, with the Venus here in opposition to Pluto, it's a really good opportunity to examine, deep relationship issues, deep issues around money. You're going to see sign by sign how this will manifest in different ways, but there may be a real need to question how you spend money, how you borrow money. So keeping in mind that Taurus and Scorpio are also money axis, this is all about how we spend, how we borrow money, how we loan money, what do we share with other people, and what do we need to cultivate to feel safe and secure. So issues around finance might come up for many people, and certainly around the world globally, we're seeing all of that as well. Compromise, balance, manipulation, power struggles. This is really the big theme of the first week of Venus in Leo. So really up until the 10th or 11th of June, this is very strong. And if you think of it in terms of a birth chart, then the ingress chart, like stamping the initial energy of the passage of Venus through Leo, we could keep this theme in mind for the next 4 months, although it will probably wax and wane as it goes through the phases, and also goes through the different aspects with different planets as well. So Venus is also soon after she squares the nodes and opposes Pluto. Venus is also in square to Jupiter, which can be really nice. And that's especially active from the 9th until the 13th of June. That's super energy for having fun. It can be quite self-indulgent. So again, we'll see that sign by sign. But just in general, a really nice splash out. But it can also be too much of a good thing. Too much is still too much. And so that can also, of course, be seen globally in the way that we may not be paying attention to finances or the economy, or we may be glossing over some details that require a little more closer consideration. Again, all of these will be individualized according to your natal chart and the different house placements of all of these aspects, but just keep it all in mind, as this is really where we're asked to pay attention over the next 4 months. Also around mid-June, Venus is going to be sextile Mercury. So that's especially around the 17th. It's exact on the 17th of June. That's really great for having conversations around issues that are important Mercury is going to be particularly strong because it will be in Gemini at that time. So it will be something to take advantage of. With Venus sextiling Mercury, you can get quite a lot of really interesting um, problems overcome, whether that be financial or in relationships, for example. Great time to negotiate things, contracts and agreements, and just a great time for friends and siblings as well with Mercury and Gemini. Venus will square Uranus 3 times during this time in Leo, and so the first time she'll do that is on the 27th of June, and that continues all the way through till the 7th of July, but it's exact on the 2nd of July. A really interesting time also to keep your eyes open if you're looking for something new in terms of relationship, new potentials, surprises. Of course, it can be meeting somebody by surprise, or it can be surprises within a relationship that you already have going on. And of course, that can be financial surprises as well. We want to keep in touch with what's going on in the economy as well and keep an eye out for that while this is happening, particularly the last week of June and the first week of July. So Venus will be retrograde from the 23rd of July until the 4th of September, universal time. And because of the degree points, we're going to find her entering the shadow phase already on the 19th of June. So the shadow phase where Venus will be stationing direct on the 4th of September is at 12 degrees and 12 minutes of Leo. So keep an eye on what is going on in terms of this Venus in Leo from the 19th of June, because that's going to be showing up in September once Venus turns direct again. And she only then finally leaves the shadow phase on the 7th of October, where she'll be at 28 degrees and 36 minutes of Leo, which is where she turned retrograde on the 23rd of July. So eventually leaving the next day, moving out of Leo and into Virgo on the 8th of October. That shadow phase is a really interesting time to observe what it is that you're dealing with, what it is that you realize needs changing, what it is that you want to push forward with, and what it is that you're ready to move on from, because it will help you already to prepare how the retrograde is going to manifest. If you can, kind of do this consciously in such a way that it brings you the best results possible come September, when finally you're kind of moving through these old things that you've already dealt with in June, July, and August. It's just a really great way of keeping on top of what's coming ahead for you in September. So I'm going to cover that more in detail in the retrograde video. And let's go to the sign-by-sign forecast right now, and we'll see how that all takes shape over the next 4 months. So Leo, this of course is all about you, and Venus moving into your first house is going to be very much reflecting you personally, but also your physical appearance and your overall sense of well-being. So until the 10th of July, so for many of you, that's going to cover your birthday time as well. You've got a really nice energy, the dynamism of Mars and the beauty and the harmony and the grace of Venus, both in your first house. And it's almost enough to have you forget about Pluto moving into your 7th. So, but of course, for you, that Venus in the first house opposing Pluto in the 7th is going to call up issues of relationship. There's no avoiding that. And it's going to be about how you are, how you feel, what your needs are specifically in relationship, and what that might require in terms of what needs to be transformed in relationship as long as Pluto is there. And to find out more about that Pluto movement through the 7th house for you, go to my Pluto in the signs video, because it'll give you much more detail. So here I'm really focusing on Venus. And the Venus in the first house also is a great opportunity for you to just overall improve your health, feel good about yourself, feel optimistic. So it's not always true that Leos are naturally flashy people. Not necessarily naturally outgoing and vibrant as the archetype would hold, because that depends on other placements in the chart. And that's especially the case for a Leo rising, for example. You might have the fabulous hair, but you're not necessarily going to feel like you want to stand out. That depends on many other aspects. If you've got the sun now in Leo, of course, that will be much stronger. and potentially also the moon. And this applies for the sun, moon, and rising sign, but it'll have a nuance, a little bit different. When Venus is in the first house, you might like to upgrade your look as well. You might want to change the way that you look. But either way, it's going to be really lovely in terms of the way other people resonate with you. You're going to be attractive, and people will be inspired to be with you. They're going to find you much more appealing, perhaps, than at any other time. And also that Venus in the first house is ruling your 10th house of career. And that means that she's ruling over the North Node and Jupiter up in the top of your chart, which is already giving you a real boost in your career. It's giving you some real opportunities, some real new things coming up in terms of social status or how you do show up in terms of your role or your ambition in the world. So there's quite a lot to harmonize here between yourself and what it is that you're doing in the world. This is a really lovely time for Leos. And keeping in mind that Venus also rules your 3rd house as well as the 10th house, this is really great for communications as well. The Venus is always going to be pulling that energy into wherever she rules. So she's ruling Libra in your 3rd and she's ruling Taurus in the 10th. And so while you've got it going through the 1st house all the way through the 8th of October, you're going to have this opportunity to really communicate in a way that gets you paid attention to, that gets you heard. It might be that you've been a bit of a wallflower. You might be one of those Leos that's not really fully comfortable expressing yourself. And this is a great opportunity to explore that, to see what's holding me back. One of the things that is worth calling back in time, depending on your age, is to go back until the summer of 2015. Venus was retrograde also in Leo in the summer of 2015, particularly through August. And so this is definitely an idea that you can have a look at what was going on in your life, perhaps those, oh my goodness, 7 years ago, and see how things have evolved for you and what it is that you might like to change now based on what you understood either then or what you're realizing now. So I think a really lovely time for Leos. It's always lovely having Venus in your 1st house, regardless of sign, but especially for Leo, it's a wonderful time to shine brightly because you've got this fantastic quality happening also in your house of social presence and how you show up in your work, how you show up in society. So make the very most of this, Leo, and enjoy that transit. And so you have Venus going through your 2nd house. And this is also a really great place to have Venus. Venus is at home in the 2nd house because she rules the natural 2nd house, as it is the house of Taurus in the natural zodiac. And Venus also rules your 11th house, which is another money house. And she also rules your 4th house. So we're going to call in all of those different areas of your chart in this passage of 4 months with Venus in the 2nd. So issues around money, your values, how you spend, be careful because Venus going through the 2nd can have you spending as much as saving and earning. But that might apply, for example, to how it is that you are earning money from the things that you do in a way that might be connected to friends, connected to networks or people who can be of great service to you, or great benefit, because you've got Jupiter and the North Node still in the 11th house, Jupiter staying there all the way through till next May, and Venus ruling that Jupiter. So it could be that friends become, or important people become, a great source of extra income for you, the 2nd house being wealth and income, as well as the 11th house, which is the 2nd house from the 10th, so the money you earn from the thing that you do. And because Venus is ruling the 4th, it might be that you're needing to spend money on your home. And that can also be with regards to something to do with either moving or renovating or wanting to upgrade the quality of your furnishings, for example. Just simply be careful because when Venus does square Jupiter, that can have us overspending, have us a little bit extravagant. And so keep that in mind. So, save as much as you can and be cautious. Don't be too flamboyant because Venus in Leo can be a bit extravagant, and especially in square to Jupiter. And so you do want to be careful not to be too overboard, too carefree with that. But nonetheless, this is going to be a really fantastic transit for you to feel that you're earning more or that you're capable of earning more, that you have a better grip perhaps on your finances and on the income or investments that you're needing to make or wanting to make. With Mars also there, you're probably throughout the month of June and into July going to have quite a lot of drive around making money. And that's quite a helpful thing as well. It's going to contribute a lot to your overall sense of security. And for Cancer, it's very important, that feeling of security. And of course, Venus ruling that fourth house of what makes you feel secure. So the money is definitely helping to contribute to that. So Venus is opposing Pluto in your eighth house, and that's other people's money. And so there may be something that comes to you from other people. There may be an inheritance or some opportunity to earn money through clients, for example, or through a marriage partner, through a business partner. But that might come with the need to adjust something. So there may be something that requires a rethink or an adjustment, some way of getting money from others or sharing money with others requires a little bit of reconsideration. Nonetheless, I think Cancer, this is going to be a really great transit. We will look more closely at the retrograde. So come July, I'll come back with a video to discuss how the retrograde will affect the second house. But in the meantime, a really wonderful opportunity to boost your sense of self-worth, self-esteem, your money. You can even desire to change the way that you appear. The second house is your face. It's the way that you show up. So you might feel that you want to enhance your appearance. If that's the case, if you want to do any kind of beauty measures like a new haircut or some work on your face or something like that, be sure to do that before the retrograde period, which is the 23rd of July. And some people go even as far as to say before the shadow period, which would be the 19th of June. I'm agnostic on that. I think it very much depends on an individual chart. And of course, go for it. The thing that is potential, if you do some kind of beauty treatment or something that is long lasting, like not just a facial, but let's say plastic surgery or something like that, there may be a challenge if you go into the retrograde energy of Venus. There may be a challenge that requires some kind of reconstruction or repair or a change, or you might have had a change of heart and you thought this was a great idea and then you don't afterwards. So nonetheless, enjoy it, have fun with it. If you're in doubt, don't do anything long lasting, just do something for now and enjoy it while it lasts. So best wishes with all of that, and I will see you in the next video, Cancer. Gemini, you have Venus going through your third house, which is a great place for you. It brings a lot of the gift for the gab up to the forefront, and you have this capacity then to be very connected with people through conversations, through short-term travel. This is wonderful for sibling relationships, for example. Mars is still there, so there can be a little bit of sass, but it's with Venus there, it's probably toned down ever so slightly. Just overall, a really nice place to have Venus, because Venus in the third will make you feel much more social, much more outgoing, more gregarious in general. This is indeed one of the reasons that Gemini, especially because we have to take that from the rising, from the first house placement, the third house for all Geminis is Leo. And as a result, Geminis are considered to be very outgoing in their speech, very, very much into that socializing and gregarious self-expression. So it's not just randomly because Geminis are Gemini, but it's because Leo and the Sun rule your third house. And so here you're getting a harmonizing aspect from Venus there that can be very, very pleasant. And also, being a good Gemini, you might also be very interested in business exchanges and commerce and money matters of all kinds. And the third house is a commercial house. It's a house of business. And so Venus there is also really, really good for you. And she does also rule your fifth house, which is, again, another reason why Geminis are really good in terms of business. And so Venus ruling the fifth house while she's in the third house gives you some really interesting opportunities around business. In the opposition to Pluto at the very beginning, she's going to perhaps show up ways where you're going to be seeing the world through different eyes. Pluto will be changing your sense of purpose and drive, your sense of what it is that you're here for, and equally, possibly also your beliefs. What do I believe about my life? What needs to change? Maybe you need to feel a little bit more adventurous or expand your horizons a little bit. And then Venus in the third will give you that sort of feeling of social connection and a can do kind of capability to reach out and communicate with people while all of that is happening. So travel, whether it's long distance or short distance, Venus in the third would be short distance travel, the everyday practical stuff. Pluto in the ninth is the long distance, and also the Venus ruled 12th house is very much all about travel. And so these questions of where maybe holidays or business travel are all there for you. Faraway places, people who are far away, relationships that might be far away or with foreigners in some way, all of that serving you really well. Be careful with Jupiter in the 12th house, simply because that can also represent loss. So, financial loss or loss of relationship, or loss of some kind. It would have to be shown in your natal chart. So, that's not necessarily guaranteed. It's just one of the aspects of this. But we tie that in because Venus is ruling that 12th house, and the Pluto in the ninth. It's very much about travel and foreigners. And of course, Venus ruling the fifth, if you're in a business or something, just be careful not to overspend. This Jupiter in the 12th can also be spending money, but you know why you're spending it. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to be spending that money. Also, you have Jupiter in for a whole year in your 12th house. It's not like you're going to be hemorrhaging money for a year. It's more like you might find that there are extreme expenses at some point, or that you might not get the results that you really wanted. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't be working towards that financial goal anyway. If it is with regards to foreigners or foreign lands, this is particularly harmonious for that, and of course for holidays as well. So really, really pleasant time all the way through early October. So enjoy all of that, Gemini, and I'll see you in the next video. Taurus, you have Venus in your fourth house. That's a really lovely place to have your ruler. And we always want to know where the ruler is. So with Venus in the fourth house, it's a really nice time for you to decide to perhaps upgrade your home, perhaps taking more time with your family. Venus in the fourth can have you really reconnecting with your family, whether it be your family as you've established it or the family you've come from. With Mars there too, there's a lot of energy around that. So this can also be something to do with property and perhaps a desire to move or a desire to sell or buy property. And of course, you've got Jupiter in your first house. So this is a really optimistic time for you, ruled by that Venus in the fourth. So overall, I think a really wonderful few months leading up to October. You do have the opposition of Pluto up in your 10th house there. So Pluto opposing Venus from the 10th house suggests that perhaps you're changing your goals, you're changing your ambitions, perhaps even changing career, depending on your chart again. And depending on your age, it might be more about retirement. Maybe you're deciding it's time to retire or you have to retire. And so this is where you're starting to feel the Venus tendency to want to kind of hunker down in the fourth house of what makes you feel safe and secure, what makes you feel happy. It's no longer out there in the world, but it's now more inward. This can also be with regards to your own inner sense of what you need in terms of your own psychology. And Venus going through the fourth can have you just feeling just that much better and just feeling more optimistic, feeling more sort of settled than perhaps you have for a while. Venus, of course, also rules your house of everyday health and routines. So the sixth house, where we find Libra, is ruled by Venus. And so that calls that in too. So we have the first house of your body, yourself, and the fourth house of your emotions and what makes you feel safe and settled and grounded and secure, and the sixth house of day-to-day routines. So perhaps there's something here that you're learning about in terms of what you need to stay well, and that might also give you an impetus for perhaps changing habits. Maybe that's also part of this Venus opposition to Pluto, where there's a desire that changes, a new wish, a new hope for something to show up so that you show up differently in the world around you, is that Pluto is really coming up on a very long new cycle of 2 more decades in the 10th house. And that's this Venus is going to be influencing this house of health in a way that can be quite positive for you. So if you do have any health issues or anything that's you're concerned about, then this is a really good time for you to address it, because you'll find people that will help you in whatever way you need to resolve these issues. With Jupiter going through the first house, especially when it squares Venus in the middle of June, just beware of overindulgence. And especially because that's a Taurian sort of tendency, we could call that. You just want to make sure that you're staying within the limits of what it is that's going to keep you happy and healthy for a long time. And especially don't overspend. As a Taurian, you're probably pretty good about taking care of your money. But then, of course, there are exceptions to every archetype. So enjoy whatever it is that's coming up for you in your fourth house, Taurus, and I will see you in the next video. Aries, you've got Venus in your fifth house. How cool is that? Venus in the fifth is trining your sign, which is a wonderful place to have Venus, because it makes you feel really good. It's a lucky house, the fifth house. It's great because Mars is also there, so it might have you feeling more adventurous because that's your ruler, along with Venus in the fifth. And so Mars and Venus combined in the house of sports and gambling and fun and sex and love affairs and children and all the good things. That looks like a fun few months ahead up until the early part of October. So Aries, enjoy this time because I think you'll feel really, really positive, really dynamic. It is a really lucky house. This is also the house of business. If you are working for yourself, for example, if you are in business for yourself, this can be a really interesting time to create something, to develop something. This is the house of self-expression and creativity. So it's really Venus on steroids, because you're the Aries, especially the Aries risings. This is the natural house for Leo, and Venus going in there is really full on in terms of self-expression. So it's a great time to crank up the mojo and start expressing yourself, whether that be through the work that you do or through some kind of creative enterprise. You also have a lot of creative juice here with Jupiter in the second house of harmony and beauty as well, ruled by that Venus in the fifth. And so this is a wonderful opportunity for money making in general. You have Pluto moving into the 11th, which is another way of saying that you might be changing the way that you're earning your living, that your resources are changing, or that the people around you who might support you are changing. And this could have something to do with the opposition that we get right at the very beginning of that ingress in the first week or so that Venus is coming into Leo, in that direct opposition to Pluto in your 11th house of money that you earn from things that you do, but also friends and who supports you and your goals and your hopes and dreams for life. And so perhaps a lot of this is changing based on what you realize about your needs or your values or what it is that you want to be doing in the future. But nonetheless, if you're working for yourself towards a creative project, or if you're working within a community group towards a creative project, this is going to be a great few months for all of that. And lastly, Aries, of course, Venus is ruling your seventh house. And so with Venus in the fifth, again, really great opportunities for love affairs and animating that seventh house of relationships. So there could be something really interesting coming in for you in the few months that Venus is there, harmonizing relationships with you, with others, for example, or adding to the potential for entering into a new relationship, again, depending on your natal chart. But this could be a really great time to make sure you get out there, and that Pluto in the 11th will be showing you how to get out there with different people. So best wishes for all of this, Aries, and I will see you in the next video. Pisces, you've got Venus in the sixth house. She's there alongside Mars. So there's quite a lot of dynamism in your everyday life, your health, the work environment. That's especially up until the 10th of July. But Venus, of course, is there all the way through till the 8th of October. And so as long as Venus is in the sixth, you're going to have quite a pleasant time in terms of how you show up in the way that you work, that you can find a lot of joy there. It can make you a wee bit lazy, but I don't think with Mars there you're going to be able to be lazy. So it looks like up until the 10th of July, you are, rather than being more self-indulgent, you're going to be quite busy, but in a way that actually feels really good to you. Venus is exalted in Pisces, so it resonates quite nicely with Pisces overall. Venus is in opposition to Pluto in your 12th house. And so there could be something that you're recognizing about day-to-day habits, or, usually the bad ones, let's face it, the things that we do to ourselves that prevent us from being well. Well, Venus is in the 6th house. You're starting to recognize what you want now in terms of good health or a better lifestyle. And Pluto in the 12th is showing you what it is that you're able to transform, what it is that you need to overcome. And of course, Pluto is only just getting started in the 12th house. So this is just a little initial nudge there from Pluto in opposition to Venus. But I think worth taking the nudge, worth taking the tips. What do I need to do or let go of that will improve my overall health, whether that be mental, physical, or emotional? They're all intertwined, and we can't escape one without the other. So really, that Pluto also in the 12th house can be very much about a desire for something more spiritual or something more profound, a deeper understanding of your inner nature. And then that becomes something that you can realize in your everyday life. So almost in a way, spiritualizing your everyday activities, as long as that trigger stays around. We also have the Venus-ruled 3rd house, which is very busy for you. And the 3rd house, of course, is also representing issues around your busyness, your activity, your business, the way that you might operate as an independent worker, for example. And so with Venus there in the 6th, you've got a lot of opportunities now to feed back into that, for the Jupiter in the 3rd house, that's going to bring you a lot of abundance and a lot of energy around communication, around teaching, around expressing yourself through some kind of commercial activity, or some perhaps internet, or in some way to engage you in your community, engage you in terms of what it is that you want to develop in exchange with other people. Financial exchanges of all kinds, but of course social exchanges as well. Venus representing both of those. And then Venus also is ruling the 8th house for you, which is other people's money. And so once again, there's this kind of energy here that's quite powerful about something that's going to come your way with cooperation with other people, something that you're doing with other people that will especially become obvious, I think, when Pluto moves back into the 11th house, which is all about groups and associations as well. And that Venus is ruling that 8th house, so potentially that can represent marriage partners, or business partners, or money that you get from clients, for example, that your everyday work is going to contribute to, your everyday lifestyle is going to contribute to. So whatever it is that you're doing day to day is going to show up and be supported in the 8th house, as well as in the 3rd house. This is also in the 8th house, the house of borrowing, lending, sharing other people's stuff and money. And so perhaps if you need to borrow money, that's something that will work to your advantage as well. And so that's something to consider if you need a loan, for example. I wouldn't overstretch on the money front, simply because Venus in Leo can tend to be a bit extravagant. And when Venus and Mars are going through the 6th house, this is a challenging place. There can be some issues around debt, for example. You might find that you're able to resolve debt, but probably not a good time to take on debt. And that would be, with the exception of if you are doing so to purchase something that's long lasting, like a house, for example. But just be careful, because the Venus Mars in the 6th can also be reflecting some bigger issues around obstacles that might have to do with divorce settlements and legal disputes and so on. And that's part of the Venus in the 8th as well, because that also is all about what happens around marriage. And that, of course, includes divorce as well. So so that again would depend on your own chart and shouldn't be taken at face value, but it's definitely worth considering for some of you. So just don't overstretch. Enjoy this passage of Venus through the 6th house, though, Pisces, while it lasts, and I'll come back with a video about the retrograde phase in a few weeks. Aquarius, you've got Venus in your seventh house, which is really lovely because it is a great opportunity to focus and harmonize on relationships for you. And in opposition to Pluto, that has just come into your first house, this is going to be a nice balancer, perhaps an opportunity for you to see your role in relationships and how you might be needing to transform yourself so that you can have this harmony that you want in relationships, or find that relationships become more harmonious because you're realizing something in terms of what is important to you in terms of balance, finding your balance between self and other. Venus going through the seventh can bring you wonderful business partnerships as well. Mars too will bring you some dynamism in both business and personal relationships. But it's a great opportunity for you to examine your needs and what it is that you want in relationships, as well as where you might need to compromise a little bit in relationships and find a better harmony there. Venus, of course, for you rules the fourth house, and ruling the fourth house, that's all about your home, but it's also all about your sense of your what you need to feel secure, what you need to feel happy, what you need to feel safe. And so Venus in this partnership house that is ruling the fourth house might show you something about how your either your life partner or business partners or important friends are contributing to how you feel around your home and around what makes you feel safe and happy, what brings you happiness. And this is something to pay attention to for the entire duration of Venus moving through your seventh house, but particularly so as Venus is with Mars until the 10th of July, where there can be an extra intensity around relationships. So being really clear what it is that you want, what are your values, your fundamental values, which is what the energy of Taurus in the fourth is trying to show you, is something that you can start to found your relationships on so that you're not compromising. Venus in the seventh can have us compromising a wee bit, perhaps less so when Mars is there. But nonetheless, Venus in the seventh can have us compromising a little bit, more than you might feel you should. And again, we're talking about Leo and we're talking about Mars being there at the same time. So that's not necessarily the case for everyone. And it depends on the nature of your own Venus. But keep that in mind anyway, because you might be feeling a little over generous. Trying to keep the peace here at home or trying to find a way to be happy, and therefore compromising with the partner in a way that actually ultimately doesn't really work for you. So this is part of this power imbalance or power balance that you're seeking here, which is going to continue for quite some time because you've got Pluto moving through that first house of self for 2 decades. So we also see Venus ruling your ninth house, which is what do I believe and what is my purpose? And so there can be some really important questions that you want to ask yourself about your guiding philosophy of life, and how your relationships and how your home environment are affected by that or affecting that. And so this is going to be an opportunity too for you to really start to call in perhaps a more spiritual or faith-based way of looking at things, or it could be just a new philosophy of life, a new way of seeing your purpose or your role in life with regards to relationships and how that might be affecting you and relationships, and also, of course, with regards to what you need to feel safe and secure and settled at home. So, best wishes for all of this, Aquarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Capricorn, you have Venus going through your eighth house of other people's money. This is the house of marriage as well, committed partnerships. And so there can be quite a lot of dynamic energy there, it can be quite harmonizing, but at the same time, potentially quite intense. So on a good day, that's going to be quite sexy energy. This is all about intimacy as well. So it might be also about refreshing intimacy and relationship, kind of reaching deeper into your connection with other people, especially the most important people in your life. Intimacy is not always sexual. It's also just about being more, completely yourself. And of course, as Venus is also ruling your fifth house of self-expression, that would be one way that this is really panning out for you, that you're really allowing yourself to be vulnerable, allowing yourself to be really yourself and in the intimacy of a shared relationship. And this can also be with regards to a therapeutic relationship, where the eighth house can be very helpful in terms of understanding what is the deeper unconscious process, what's going on in terms of your maybe shadow aspects or your hidden self, or what it is that you need to understand about your parents or childhood, for example, things that you might need to um, reflect on. Of course, that Mars in the eighth is ruling your fourth, which is all about family and roots and your childhood experiences. So I think this could be a really wonderful time for you to start to feel a little more relaxed around your marriage partner, or being feeling more close than you have been for a while. Perhaps you've been too busy, too much going on, and there's been a difficulty in really finding that connection. And of course, if this is about something to do with money, then that also can be very favorable in terms of advocating for more money if you are having to negotiate a contract or having to negotiate around an inheritance or some kind of shared resource. The Venus will harmonize the impact of Mars there in the eighth. There'll be certainly a lot of intensity around that until the 10th of July. But the Venus will be there in your eighth house all the way through the 8th of October. So that can be quite good in terms of having to go through any kind of issues around shared resources, money, loans, and so on. Or, of course, just in general with marriage or business partners. Venus also rules your 10th. And as a result of Venus ruling the 10th, then this could also have something to do with contracts or negotiations that you need to clarify around the work that you do. And this can be also bringing you a new sense of how you need to show up in terms of your work. Maybe speaking up for yourself, for your own needs through, finding more harmony in terms of what other people see in you, how other people value you. But overall, I think it's a very positive aspect, because Venus is ruling this very fortunate fifth house for you, where you already have Jupiter for a year, basically, and bringing you quite a lot of good fortune. So quite a nice thing to have until the 8th of October, Capricorn. And with Venus in opposition to Pluto in your second house, there can be a whole new way of considering your finances, considering what it is that's important for investing, what's important in terms of security, financial security, how you earn your money. This might have something to do with a desire to change work, change your job, given that we're also on the cusp of the South Node moving into the 10th, and soon to be ruled by that Venus, currently Venus ruling the North Node in the 5th, which is much more with regards to your children, for example, or your self-expression and what makes you feel happy. But Venus is going to still continue to be quite prominent here for a year and a half after the nodes change. So I think work is looking like something that's going to be changing for you, Capricorn, but in a way that is coming from a place of what you might find you need to, make you respond, let's say, to what makes you happy, or what makes you feel creatively inspired, or what makes you feel understood and seen by other people. So I'll leave it at that. Further, I would need to see a natal chart, but I do think it looks pretty good overall for Capricorn friends. And I'll see you in the next video so we can look more deeply at the Venus retrogrades as well. Sagittarius, we've got Venus in your 9th house. That's a wonderful place to have Venus. She's in a trine to your 1st house. So that's very uplifting, very inspiring. And Venus in the 9th is full of adventure and a big, broad perspective on ideas and learning, discovering new people, new places, new beliefs, new systems of thought. The 9th house is also what it is that you consider your purpose in life. And as Venus is not only in that part of your chart, but she's also ruling the 11th house of your hopes and wishes and dreams. And this is a really great opportunity for you to consider what it is that you feel you're driven by. What is my purpose? How am I showing up in life? And especially also because Venus is ruling the 6th house of everyday life, and your ruler, Jupiter, is there as well. So there's quite a lot here that suggests that your everyday life is impacted by this sense of what it is that I'm here for. What do I believe now? What do I want to achieve? Where do I want to go with all of this? Venus in the ninth is also a wonderful energy for travel, for travel with a purpose, usually travel to learn things, travel for business, for example, travel for discovering things. But you can also expand your mind, not necessarily by having to go anywhere, although, of course, Sagittarius, you would want to go somewhere, but you can also expand your mind by learning, by reading a book, by seeking out some new form of understanding through higher education. And this is also Venus in this chart, this part of your chart for 4 months can have you deciding to take on a new study, or feeling better about the studies that you are doing, or just getting motivated to learn new things even on your own. And that's, of course, in opposition to Pluto, which is in your 3rd house, which is also about learning and developing more practical skills, learning things that are really serving you immediately, like languages, for example, or computer skills or something like that. But Pluto in opposition to Venus in the 9th house, that can be something where you start to realize where the give and take might need to be between the 3rd house of your everyday thinking and your surroundings, and how that looks, and how you might even communicate that, how you think about things compared to what you believe and what you would like to aspire to, which is not always easy to make manifest in everyday life, except that particularly now it would be over the next while, because Venus is ruling this 6th house, where Jupiter is also taking shape until May of 2024. So a really great time, if this is something that you feel is on the agenda, a really great time to expand your thinking, expand your horizons, have a sense of what it is that you want to accomplish. Where do you want to go? What are my hopes and wishes and dreams? Can friends be helpful in this regard? Bringing friends in, or this can also be relationships of, foreign people, people from faraway places, that can actually influence your thinking, influence your way of seeing yourself or your life. So again, really, I think a really nice period of time with this Venus going through the 9th for you, Sagittarius. It's very much in your energy, Venus in the 9th house. And so I think you're going to really have fun with that. Definitely a great time to travel. Definitely a great time to reach out and discover new ways of exploring your own life, which is absolutely up your alley. And then come back to that 3rd house where you're learning new ways of thinking and talking and sharing about things. Yeah, all in all, a really, really nice energy for you that looks like also the everyday life can be full and busy, but in a way that's quite inspiring. You will definitely, with Venus in the 9th and your ruler, Jupiter, in the 6th house, ruled by that Venus, you will definitely need to resonate with what you're doing to feel that it's fulfilling. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be doing something that you don't resonate or don't feel fulfilled with, because even the most wonderful dream job has a bad day. Even the most wonderful dream job still requires, bookkeeping or whatever. And so don't buy into this idea of I have to live my passion and love my life, or it's not good for me. That's quite an immature way of looking at your sense of what makes you get out of bed, your ikigai. So this Venus is about achieving a higher purpose through a higher perspective of life, not for personal comfort. So don't despair if you're not feeling that joy in what you're doing. Look for the joy and try and cultivate that, create that. And I think that'll be easy to find with Venus in the 9th. So best wishes with all of that, Sagittarius, and I'll see you in the next video. Scorpio, you've got Venus in your 10th house of career. That's a lovely place to have Venus, because you'll get noticed. People will be seeing you in a way that might be extremely helpful. And so with Venus in the 10th, you can, for example, have more conducive relationships with people in hierarchy, your boss, or important people that that matter to you in the social context. This is the house of social status. You've got Mars there as well, which gives you a drive and an ambition, which I think you generally have, Scorpio. That's kind of your modus operandi, but it's even more so with Mars there, and then Venus coming along there helps you to cultivate the harmony and the balance that allows you to build teams and build ways of working together with other people to accomplish your goals. It looks like, in opposition to Pluto, that there might be a realization around what you need to be happy, how it is that you might need to change your sense of what your unconscious processes, or your psychological self, what might need to be changed in an actual physical way, including potentially needing to move. Venus is ruling your seventh house of relationships, and Venus in the 10th can represent a whole new partnership or a whole new life partner, relationship, social status, going from unmarried to married, or going from married to divorced, or something like that. Jupiter in the 7th can actually represent divorce as much as a new relationship or an expanded relationship, because what it means when Jupiter is in the 7th is it is about doing what is good for you in terms of relationship. It's bringing you benefit in terms of relationship. And in some cases, divorcing is the best option for some people. And so with Venus there in the house of status, and including career as well, but let's keep this theme of relationships going. That could mean that you're thinking about moving house, that you need to change your residence, you need to change where you are in response to relationship. This Venus ruled 7th. And that could have implications for you in terms of how you see yourself in terms of society, or how you show up in terms of where you live, etc., and with whom, and who's important in your life. Venus also rules your 12th. And so the 12th house is all about your unconscious processes as well. It's very much the hidden aspects of our psyche. It's areas of dreams, for example, and things that we're not really aware of, that can be an interesting thing to examine. What am I not aware of that I'm doing, or that I need to stop doing to feel more fulfilled, and well. The 12th house is also foreign lands, foreign people, faraway places. And so this potential for moving, for example, might actually encompass desire to move abroad or to move far away. It doesn't have to be in another country, but just far away from where you are at the moment. So all of this to say that you're in for a really big change that is going to be influencing many, many different foundations of your life. Venus is squaring the axis of the nodes, which has been in your, the South Node has been in your first house, or at least in the sign of Scorpio for the Sun and Moon, since January of 2022. And so now Venus is squaring that. So perhaps there's something that you're realizing kind of as a last ditch. Now, this is what I need to let go of. This is what I want to rid myself of. This is where I'm going towards in terms of relationships, or what I need from relationships. And Venus opposite Pluto from the 10th to the 4th is showing you what you need to reharmonize or balance in terms of your private life and your public life, or home and work, this kind of thing. So a big time, it looks like, for Scorpios, but I do think that that's going to be really good for you. Venus, in an angular house is really helpful. You've got Jupiter in an angular house as well. So it's definitely a really favorable time, and take advantage of that, because as you go forward, you can really create something based on what you deep down inside know you need to do to become more fulfilled and happier. And this will bring you more harmony and a longer lasting sense of what's possible for you as Pluto moves through your 4th house, because that's going to really transform the foundations of your life over the next 20 years. So enjoy this Venus at the top of your chart, Scorpio, and I'll see you in the next video. Libra, your ruler, of course, Venus, is in your 11th house, which is a very nice place for Venus. It's a very social house, right up your alley. Venus is in the house of your hopes and wishes and dreams as well. And so there's some aspect of what it is that you desire, your heart's desire, your your sense of what you'd like to see in terms of harmonizing or connecting with other people, right up there in the 11th. It's a fortunate place. It's a good luck house. And so, especially as Venus is your ruler, she's also bringing you up in there. So, what is going on with Venus in the 11th is involving you personally, because we can see that Venus is all about you. So, relationships of all kinds, improved quality of friendships, potential new earnings as well. This is all there for you. The 10th house being what you do in the world. And the second from the 10 being the 11th, that can be the money that you earn from what it is that you do. So very beneficial in many ways for you. And then, of course, we've got Jupiter in the 8th house. So there's some really interesting fortune and cooperation. Venus ruling that 8th house as well. That can be with business partnerships as well as marriage partners or life partners. And so bringing in an opportunity for you to expand connections with people, what you exchange with people, what you share with people. And in general, this is quite good for negotiating or for contracts or for gaining benefit from other people, whether that be from your spouse's income, for example, or from an inheritance or something along those lines. Now, Venus is opposing Pluto in your 5th house. And so this could have something to do with needing a new creative expression. So Pluto going through the 5th will completely transform your sense of how you express yourself. That's just personal self-expression and your creativity. But Pluto in the 5th tends to want to be seen, to be noticed, to be acknowledged. And this is very similar to Venus in Leo. So you might be finding that, one of the things about a lot of Libra energy is that you often tend to put other people first. And so it's not always very easy for you to really feel like you can stand out and just sort of speak up for what you need. But it looks like this is something that might be necessary. With the Pluto opposition Venus, could be a really good time for you to step up and say, this is actually how I'm feeling. This is what I really need. And you'll find that you actually benefit enormously from doing that, from just kind of expressing yourself, in a way that often you feel a bit awkward about doing, because you're trying not to make other people feel uncomfortable. Well, Venus in Leo really is asking you for a little dose of self-centeredness here. So it's your ruler, and she's asking you to shine a little more brightly than normal. And so this is an opportunity to transform that, how you express yourself. Now, this can also be with regards to children. And so perhaps, for example, if your children are either you're just about to have children, or you're thinking of having children, or your children are just off to school, or they're moving out because they're old enough now, all of this is going to shape up in terms of what are my goals now. Because, of course, that the consequence of the 5th house, Pluto going through the 5th, transforming that energy of the 5th house of parenting and children and so on, is going to be reflected in your goals and how it is that you want to connect socially. So that can also be another aspect of this for many Librans. It depends on your natal chart and, of course, your age and all of the other stuff. So I think it's a really nice time for most Librans to have your ruler at the top of the chart anyway. 9th, 10th, 11th house is always wonderful. And it's going to be a very social time. And so Librans absolutely love that. So enjoy that, Libra, and I will see you in the next video. Virgo, you've got Venus in the 12th house, and this is a place where we can feel our sort of innermost needs, but it's much more hidden, it's much more intimate, it's much more personal. It can come from a place of only discovering, sort of through contemplation, through meditation, through a deeper awareness, what it is that we want, what is it that I desire. Now, it has to also be said that Venus, especially with Mars in the 12th house, can also be hidden relationships. And so it can be that there is a relationship that you're attracted to, something that's brewing in your life, but that you can't declare for whatever reason, for legitimate or otherwise reasons. And so you want to be careful how that all shows up for you as well. This could very much have something to do with people or relationships or the ways of earning money abroad, because the 12th house is a foreign house. It's a house of faraway places. And also you've got Venus ruled Jupiter in the ninth, along with everything else that's in the ninth there. So the ninth house being very activated, ruled by that Venus, and Venus also ruling your second house of money. So it could be very much with connection to do, something to do with how you earn money, going abroad, deciding to get a job abroad, working with foreigners, connecting in a love relationship with foreigners, absolutely possible as well. So many different ways that this can express itself, but that can actually be really profoundly fulfilling, because it's bringing in a deeper sense of what you need from a place of your deepest knowing. Your 12th house is very intimate to you. It's stuff that you know, but nobody else really knows. And so your deepest driving desire would be that Venus in the 12th. Now it's in opposition to Pluto in the 6th. And so again, all of that change and all of that desire and all of this possibility, whether that be around, what it is that you want to do with your life, what kind of work, how you want to show up, or maybe traveling or moving or going abroad for whatever reason, potentially around a reflection around your money or around your self-worth, all of that's piling into this opposition with Pluto in your 6th house of everyday life. So what all of this would affect how it is that you live your everyday life. Pluto going into the 6th is definitely going to show you that you are changing in a major way in this new life that you're creating for yourself. And I think this could be quite an interesting time to really stretch your sense of what's possible for you. Virgo, you can at times hold yourself back. Again, that depends on what the rest of your chart looks like. But Virgos can be a little bit shy of taking risks. Your house of risk taking is ruled by Saturn, Capricorn. That's why Virgos are a little bit risk averse. But with Pluto going into the 6th, this is about changing things up, changing your everyday life, changing patterns. And with Venus and Mars in the 9th, this is really shaking things up from the deeper aspects of yourself, your hidden secretive side, secret desires, secret or unconscious desires, or spiritual desires as well. This is very much spiritual energy too, the 9th and the 12th. So I think it could be that you need to stretch your wings a little bit wider than you might normally do. This, I think, will pay off in terms of both money as well as an appreciation for yourself. It's a wonderful opportunity for you to really get clear what it is that you need in relationship, what it is that you desire, what it is that you are hoping for over these next 4 months, because then in October, Venus is going to go into your 1st house. So especially if that's your rising sign, but it's the 1st solar house or the 1st lunar house as well for Virgo, sun or moon as well. So Venus moving into the 1st house is going to give you a whole new cycle of Venus in your life. And this is a way of kind of recognizing what it is that I need. What do I understand about this previous cycle that I can modify or let go of? For example, what rebalancing might be needed here? And that can be with regards to just how do I deal with stuff every day. This is also the health axis. So to finish up on that note, keep in mind that any health issues here look like they have some pretty good support when Venus is in the 12th. If you've got any kind of mental health issues or anything that needs some kind of TLC, this is a wonderful opportunity to deal with that. And, the ruler of your 8th, which is also psychotherapy, psychological, unconscious programming, fear, and so on. The ruler of your 8th is there with Venus too. And Pluto in the 6th is saying, let's shake this up. Let's change and transform this area of life. And so if that's the case, it's a wonderful opportunity for you to, again, maybe with a little bit of selfishness, self-centeredness that Virgos don't normally experience, because the tendency is to always want to be there for other people. And it could be a good time for you, even if it's in secret, to be just a little bit more selfish around your desires. So enjoy whatever this is bringing to you, Virgo, and I'll see you in the next video.